Hey, I'm Dean and this is Legacy Voyage. In Season 1, I'm documenting my journey to earning my first 100K net worth as a full-time college student. Join me as I share some of the lessons I learned along the way.
This food tastes like cardboard. I feel like I've always heard those words, even when I was a little kid, and I never really understood what the heck that means. Because, like, bro, have you tasted cardboard before? Like, are you at home eating cardboard? Is that what you do? Because how the heck do you know that this thing tastes like cardboard? Whatever the food is. Like, they would say this all the time. I remember when I was in middle school, they would say this all the time. All the other kids, and I was just like chilling, eating the pizza or whatever, and they all be eating like, bro, this pizza tastes like cardboard. It's disgusting. But not only in middle school does this happen, even in high school, when I came out here to Evanston, to Chicago, and I was living in the dorms, and every day they would get dinner for us at the dining hall nearby. And so often, the other kids, a part of the program, they would be complaining about the food. And now that I'm out here for college at Northwestern, like, the same thing. All the other college kids be complaining about the food. Like, oh, it tastes like cardboard. But then I'm over there just like munching on the thing. Like, what are y'all talking about? This food is not bad. But probably the craziest moment I had with like amazing food and other kids were complaining about it. There's this thing called the MTC in Utah. This is where all the Mormon missionaries go. They train before they go on their mission, like 6 to 12 weeks or whatever. But in this place, the church, they feed all the missionaries. So I was able to go get a little tour because my sister, she works there. So I got a little tour in, and as we're doing the tour, I saw the dining hall and I was like, oh dang, yo, can we grab some food over there? So we go grab the food, and it's literally like the most beautiful, best place I've ever seen in my life. Because as soon as I walk in, I'm like looking around at all the stuff. They had a whole bunch of food options, but immediately the Hawaiian station caught my eye. It was like a aloha plates. So I was like, oh my goodness. Immediately went over there. I think I grabbed like 3 plates and just killed all of it. But I was like, bro, this is heaven. Like, this is the best food ever. And they get this for free? I'm like, those guys are so lucky, bruh. Come to find out that even kids over there are complaining about the food. I'm like, dude, this is actually insane. So here is the big takeaway. No matter how good the food is, there will always be complainers. And those complainers will always be louder than the non-complainers. That was my big takeaway, because I think we run into these types of people literally everywhere we go, like at school, at work, at church, like you name it, there will always be complainers, and those complainers will always be louder than the ones who don't complain. So that was a big like epiphany moment that I had. I was like, oh man. As soon as I realized that, I wrote it down on my phone. I was like, bro, this is a bar. So that's a little story with the takeaway. Moving on to doubles of the week. These are 2 dubs and 2 L's I took over the past week. The first dub is that I just started Leland like 2 days ago. Or no, that was yesterday. Oh my goodness, it's only been 1 day. And it's been good. Before I started, like late last week, I met with Roundabout, had a little exit interview. That was also a dub. I'll talk more about both of those things in my life update, but yeah, they were both a big dub. And then the second dub is that I started eating dinner earlier, and it was really good because my sleep is better, or at least it's getting better. Over the past couple days, it's been getting better because I've had earlier dinner. And I think last episode, I was like super big on trying to get better sleep. So my sleep is getting better. The unfortunate side, or the L, is that over the weekend I went to Utah and it was absolutely thrashed in Utah. Like it was really bad in Utah. But that's just cause like being around family, being on vacation, that's usually how it goes. It's hard to get a good sleeping schedule without very much structure. But I was in Utah for my sister's grad, which is, that was like another dub, being able to see the fam and everyone. But the other L is that I forgot my shoes in Utah because I was planning to run a half marathon when I got back. Unfortunately, I couldn't because I didn't have my running shoes. That's all for doubles of the week. Moving on to philosophizing. These are things I've been thinking about since the last episode. The first thing is that I realized at least one of the reasons why on the outside I seem to be super decisive. Because in the last episode I was talking about how I'm a pretty decisive person, or at least that's how I was described. And I realized talking with a friend that one of the reasons I'm decisive is because I don't care about other people. Or at least I don't care about other people's opinions. Because he was telling me that sometimes he's kind of indecisive if whatever he does, it gets judged by a ton of people and they're like, oh, look at this guy. But I don't really think that way. I don't really like carry too much weight to what other people think. Especially if I don't care about those people. I think a perfect example of this is when we were at the grad, and we were trying to find seats in this packed auditorium. So we're trying to find seats, like we ran out of poly time, so got there like an hour late or whatever. So as we're trying to find seats, I'm walking through the stadium, like up and down all of these stairs. And I got hecka moted because I walked literally all the way down, probably like 5 stories. 5 stories might be too long. Maybe like 4 or 3 stories of stairs with a whole bunch of people just staring at me. And as I was walking up, I was like, you know what? I was kind of getting a little embarrassed, but then I remembered, I just don't care. Like, everyone else is focused on their own lives. Like, no one is going to pay any attention to me. So I was like, it's whatever. So then I just stopped caring about what they thought. But something else I've been thinking about is, performative versus legit entrepreneurship. This was something that came up in the exit interview that I had with Roundabout. Because he was talking about some of the things that he hoped I gained out of it. And this was definitely one of them. This difference between performative versus legit entrepreneurship. Performative is like, all the events. I feel like the garage over here is probably one of them. It's like, you just like make a show out of it. You show other people. Pitch competitions are usually like this. But legit entrepreneurship is like actually building something that people want. I think that's the easiest way to explain it. That is legit entrepreneurship. But what's interesting is that today in my philosophy class, we were talking about a similar-ish type of idea, but I found a connection between performative versus legit virtues. So a virtue is like those things, those really admirable traits. For example, one of a virtue could be like courage. Courage is a super admirable trait. So you have a virtue like courage, and there seems to be this difference between performative courage and legit courage. Performative courage is doing something courageous just to look like you're courageous. Where legit courage is like you're actually doing it because you're actually courageous. And I think one of my hot takes, or one of my views that I think is probably contrary to most, is that I think even if you do it for virtues, even if you do virtues or live out virtues performatively, I still think that's worth some type of value. Which I think is also true for performative entrepreneurship. Like, of course, it's not as good as legit entrepreneurship or legit virtues, but I think it still has some value. Like, it's better than not doing nothing at all. That's a great way to put it. Like, performative virtues or performative entrepreneurship is better than just like sitting on your butt. But what's even better than that is going to like legit entrepreneurship or doing legit virtues. That's another thing that was on my mind. And then the final thing for this section is a reminder that the story seems so clear in retrospect. It seems so straight, like a straight line, but only when you're looking back at it. And I think the reason I was thinking about this is because as I was doing another intro of myself, like, hi, I'm Dean, this is what I'm up to, this is what I came from. Like in that little intro, it seems so clear. But I would remember that when I was in high school, I had no idea what I was gonna do. Like there was a point in high school where I was basically the opposite of how I am now in terms of ambition. Because in high school, I was like super okay with doing the 9 to 5. I was super okay with being like the software engineer and clock in, clock out, and it's whatever. Which is so interesting because I'm so different now. Maybe I'll think more about why that is, what led me to where I am now. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. But anyways, moving on to the weekly roundup. These are random finds I had from the week. The first thing is a quote that I found from Steve Jobs in a 2005 Stanford commencement speech. Man, I was 1 year old when he said these words. That's crazy. But the quote is, stay hungry, stay foolish. I think the essence of this quote comes down to kind of what I've been talking about, like not being afraid of what other people think, or at least embracing looking dumb. I think that's what he's getting at, is because there's this thing called like the beginner's mind, where you start something for the very first time. And usually when you start something for the very first time, actually like in 99% of cases, you're always gonna suck at it. Like it's just how it is. You're not gonna be like naturally gifted at whatever you choose to start for the first time. But the thing about this beginner's mindset is that it's necessary. Like that is the price of greatness. And I think that's something that I've learned over the past couple months, especially as I've just been like picking up new skills. Because every time I pick up a new skill, I have to go through this, and I have to remember this too. Embracing the beginner's mind. Where when I was learning Tongan for the first time, bro, like everything I said didn't make any type of sense. Or when I was coding for the first time, I was like banging my head against my computer because it wouldn't run the dang code. And I think especially at Stanford, that's probably like way more true, because those kids, I think kids at Northwestern too, but those kids especially probably cared a lot about what other people think. So it's like that piece of advice that you don't have to care about what they think. Like, stay foolish. But maybe I'm misinterpreting him. Anyways, moving on to the question. And this is something that my friend asked me the other day, and I was so confused. Well, actually, I was taken aback because it's a question that I used to ask all the time, but I never ask myself this question anymore. But the question is, what keeps you going? Because I think we were eating dinner, and I was like, oh yeah, tonight I'll be working on this and this and that for the internship, because that's the Leland internship I just started. And then I have to write my paper, and then I have to go work out, like random stuff like that. I was like, Dean, what keeps you going? Like, when you wake up in the morning, what goes through your mind to say, okay, I'm gonna wake up and do this thing? The first thing that popped in my head when he asked me this was that it's such a specific kind of question. Or I think, better put, this question is only asked by people who are in a certain position. And I think that position is when they are confused on what keeps them going. The reason I say that is because when I first came into college, I was asking myself this question all the time because I had no idea what I was doing it all for, or like I lost my purpose. And I think this is an interesting question to come back to from time to time, because my idea of burnout is that it happens when we forget the why, when we lose sight of the why. Because preferably, everything we do impacts or leads to that why. And if it doesn't, then that's where I think burnout happens. It's like we're doing something and we lose sight of like the reason we're doing it in the first place. So that was the question for this episode. What keeps you going? A podcast episode I found is from the podcast host of another podcast I listen to. This philosophy pod called Philosophize This. I actually really enjoy it, but the host of that pod came on to another one with Tim Ferriss, another big podcast guy. And they had a convo, super interesting, so would highly recommend. I think, I can't remember everything that was in it, but all I remember is that while I was listening to it, I was having like some really big epiphanies. So that one was pretty good. And then I found a new podcast called Subversive that my Leland manager recommended. And this talks about like a whole bunch of business stuff, especially about consumer startups, consumer subscription startups. So there's like Duolingo, Spotify, stuff like that where you have to subscribe as a consumer. But that's all for the weekly roundup. Moving on to the life update. Update on my God. I think I've low-key been trying to more and more be less distracted. But lately it hasn't been really focusing on my God. I will say, when Mateo asked me that question, my friend, he asked me the question like, what keeps you going? I definitely came back to my God, for sure. Like, that was the reason. That is my purpose. And it's trying to become my dream self. But low-key, I think because I got to take my Tongan exam soon, I want to start diving deeper into the Bible. Do some like legit Bible study while I'm learning Tongan, which would be a win-win. Update on myself. It's been good. Unfortunately, wasn't able to do a half marathon because the running shoes, but maybe I'll do that tomorrow actually. I think I'll just send it tomorrow because I got a good amount of time. We'll see, play it by ear, but I think I'm probably like the fittest or probably the healthiest I've been in a long time. Because I was in the gym today lifting, I was like, oh dang, that's me. Low-key looking in the mirror like, dang. But it feels good. Feels good to be healthy, both physically and mentally, for sure. Moving on to update on my people. I mean, yeah, over the weekend, went to Utah. Had a good time, meeting with the fam. Oh, we sorted it out. So hopefully, or at least the plan is that I'm gonna move in with my siblings in Utah as I'm working over there. So that should be sick. Should be sick. And finally, update on my work. Like I mentioned, I had my first day at Leland the other day, and it was a big dub. Okay, first of all, leading into my first day, I didn't know what was gonna happen because they sort of told me, okay, you're on. I signed the offer to start, and they kind of like didn't respond to anything after that. So I didn't really know what was gonna happen. I wake up the morning of, and I saw this email from my manager. It was like, hey, what's up? Let me know what schedule looks like today. Let's hop on a call. It's like, okay, sick. Let's hop on a call. Scheduled the call for later that day. It was like in the afternoon. And we finally hop on the call, and here I am thinking like, okay, time to get to work, time to get busy, like give me my project. I'm gonna start doing it right now. But instead of diving into work stuff off the bat, he kind of like took a step back and introduced himself, which I thought was interesting. Like, we dove into the personal stuff before we started talking about like the business stuff and the projects and things. And so that was the first thing that I was kind of like, oh, this is different. This is pretty cool. And then the next thing is that he explained how he's had past interns and contractors, and usually the way he did it is that like they hopped on board, they had their first day, and he sort of just cut them loose. Like, okay, here's everything that needs to happen, like go crazy. But the downside of that is that he didn't give them enough attention. And so I think he recognized that. And there's something he said specifically that really stood out to me. He said, feel the opposite of intruding. And I thought this was like, I don't know, it stood out to me so much because I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna steal this when I'm a manager, for sure. It gave me so much permission to intrude, to like send him a message, hey, can we hop on a call? Can we hop on a meeting? Like, I'm kind of confused on this part. And I think that's what he wants. He wants me to ask a ton of questions, especially as we're ramping into starting up, or as I start at Leland. So that really stood out to me. And then after he went through all the projects and explained everything that I was gonna work on, I asked him a higher level questions like, okay, how much time did you spend like putting this whole thing together, like deciding what I'm gonna do? Like, how did you decide for me to work on these specific projects? And he said two things that I thought were interesting. The first one was that he recognized I am a systemizer, which I think I definitely am. Like, if you look at my Notion, if you look at my Arc, like I like systemizing things and automating things. It was actually to the point where at first when I was starting out in We Are Nesian, the Nesian News when it first started, I would over optimize for everything. And he said that it's super helpful in the early stages. Like at Leland, that's what they were doing. But now as it's kind of growing, it's time to optimize and systemize, which I think I am more naturally inclined toward. So that was the first thing that he mentioned, because the things that I'm doing now is kind of like systemizing stuff. And then the other thing I thought was interesting is that he recognized I'm a growth hacker, which I've never really saw myself this way. But I think it kind of fits in with all the digital marketing stuff I've done and all the sales stuff I've done too. Like, it kind of makes sense, but I never thought about myself in this way. And so it brought me back to the Shrek analogy, where at first everyone looked at Shrek and was like, oh, Shrek is evil, he's a monster just because of the way he looks, because he's an ogre. But it wasn't until Donkey and Fiona came by, they're like, oh, actually you're like a normal dude and you're kind of cool. And that's when Shrek took on the identity that those two gave him. It was like, oh, I guess I'm not really an evil person. And so in some ways, I think that's like a similar thing, where he's like, he gave me this identity. He's like, oh, you're a growth hacker. That's why I put you on these projects. And I've never really thought of myself as a growth hacker before, but now I feel like I'm kind of like embracing that identity. Like, I'm a growth hacker now. So I guess that's an interesting thing that happened. But the other thing was that I met with the roundabout dude who hired me. We had a little exit interview, like, appreciate everything you've done. It was honestly really good. I gave him feedback on what he could work on. He gave me a ton of feedback on what I could work on. And I had a realization talking with him that intern work is dead. And when I say intern work, is like the low level work. Because I told him a lot of the stuff, or a lot of the jobs that he gave me, like realistically, he could have done it on his own in probably less time than it took to manage me. But then he like corrected me, no, that's not true. There was actually other stuff, like there's other stuff that I did that was super worthwhile for him and then for the startup too. But I think it stands true. Like intern work, meaning low level work, is dead. It's pretty replaceable. And the reason it's replaceable is because of AI. And so I think the way interns stand out, or like employees in general, is by learning how to work super well with AI. And I think the way you do that is by being able to prompt it super well, meaning you understand the problem and you understand the way AI can come in and help, or at least you understand the way you can prompt AI to figure out how to solve the problem. And then the other thing is being able to fact check, basically. Like being able to make sure AI isn't tripping or hallucinating, which is another way of saying like having good taste. So not only can you have the right inputs, but you also have a good sense of what a good output looks like. So I think those are two ideas, or I guess one idea, that I'm taking into this internship with Leland. I was really trying to focus on that, but I mean, honestly, it's been a dub, so that is pretty chill, and I'm happy I was able to get this done. That is 2 episodes, 2 weeks in a row. Let's go. I'll catch y'all later. I record these episodes completely free to share success with everyone. So the only thing I ask is that if you learned anything or found something interesting in this episode, just leave a review and share it with a friend. Only takes 5 seconds and it would mean the world. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next episode. Tatok, see you.